Welcome on board the Newstrack. Article 370, the Galwan clashes, nationalism, all making a dramatic entry into the Bihar election field. Will the Battle of Bihar be more about patriotism, nationalism, or about jobs, unemployment and development? That's my top focus on the Newstrack.
Fight over Article 370 in battle for Bihar. PM tears into opposition. Says opposition wants Article 370 back. Dares Congress to reject Gupkar alliance. Mufti sings separatist tune. Patriotism takes center stage in polls. Top focus on Newstrack.
Today was the big day in the Bihar battlefield. Prime Minister Modi making his first public address in this election, flanked by Nitish Kumar. Rahul Gandhi also out for the first time. He and Tejasvi Yadav sharing the stage together. We have a power-packed political broadcast lined up. Prime Minister Modi entered battlefield Bihar today, going all guns blazing against the Mahagathbandhan, accusing the opposition of blocking development. His sharpest attack was on the issue of Article 370. Prime Minister Modi claimed the opposition wanted Article 370 restored in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Is nationalism now making a grand entry in the Bihar elections? How much traction will this issue have in a local assembly poll? And who is this likely to favor and what may this go against? We look at all of that. But first up, our big story from battlefield Bihar.
Prime Minister Modi entered the poll campaign in Bihar on Friday and launched an attack on the opposition, saying it was trying to scuttle every move made by the centre, from Ram Mandir to Triple Talaq to farm laws. The Prime Minister charged the opposition with putting obstacles to his government's plans. But it was Article 370 that was at the centre of Modi's criticism of the opposition.
जम्मू कश्मीर से आर्टिकल 370 हटने का इंतजार देश बरसों से कर रहा था या नहीं? आज ये लोग इस फैसले को पलटने की बात कर रहे हैं। ये कह रहे हैं कि सत्ता में आए तो आर्टिकल 370 फिर लागू कर देंगे। और इनका दुस्साहस देखिए। इतना कहने के बाद भी ये लोग बिहार के लोगों से वोट मांगने की हिम्मत दिखा रहे हैं। भाइयों और बहनों,
The issue of 370 being raised in the interiors of Bihar raised political eyebrows more than 2,000 kilometers away in Srinagar.
आज वजीर आजम को नरेंद्र मोदी जी को फिर 370 की बात करनी पड़ी वोट के लिए। यानी हमें समझना चाहिए कि ये सरकार जो इस मुल्क के मसले मसाइल हैं उनको सुलझाने में नाकाम हो गई है।
At her first media meet after her release, Mehbooba Mufti sent a strong message to Modi.
जिस वक्त हमारा ये झंडा वापस आएगा हम उस झंडे को भी उठा लेंगे, मगर जब तक हमारा अपना झंडा डाकुओं ने डाके में ले लिया है तब तक हम किसी और झंडे को हाथ में नहीं उठाएंगे।
भाइयों और बहनों,
If Kashmir resonated in the Prime Minister's speech, so did Ladakh. Modi recalled the sacrifices made by many in the Bihar regiment on the Galwan heights.
बिहार के सपूत गलवान घाटी में तिरंगा के खातिर शहीद हो गए लेकिन भारत माता के माथा ना झुके देले। यहाँ के लोगों का कितना अहित।
This was Modi's first public comment on the recently formed Gupkar alliance for the restoration of Article 370. What's interesting is that he chose a rally in Bihar to break his silence. With Rohit Singh, Bureau Report, India Today.
You know, what needs to be noted is that none of the parties that form the Gupkar alliance, whether it's the PDP or the National Conference, are contesting in Bihar. And yet the Prime Minister, in his first public address, says that these people want to bring Article 370 back, which is what the parties in Jammu and Kashmir have said, not the parties that are currently in the fray in Bihar. But it's very clear, whether it's the Galwan clashes, whether it's Article 370 or the issue of nationalism, these are now being pushed center stage, from the Prime Minister to the BJP President Jai Prakash Nadda, to Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, to the Minister of State for Home Nityanand Rai, a whole host of BJP leaders pushing for issues of nationalism. Is this going to work? Will there be traction around these issues in a state assembly election? Tejasvi Yadav raising the issue of unemployment, of jobs. Will this resonate? In the past, in elections, it has. In the Lok Sabha election, the BJP was able to rally the people of the country on the issue of Pakistan, on the issue of terrorism, on the issue of the surgical strikes. Joining us on the Newstrack, I want to welcome first and foremost the BJP's firebrand spokesperson, Dr. Sambit Patra, squaring off against him, a man who is known to give it back in equal measure. A worthy opponent representing the Congress party on this broadcast, Pavan Khera. With us, one of the top academicians researching actively on the field in Bihar, Manisha Priyam. And for a voice from the valley, on the day when Mehbooba Mufti held her first press conference, we've got Suhail Bukhari, who's a spokesperson for the PDP. I want to go across to Dr. Patra first, because a whole host of BJP leaders, led by the Prime Minister, have now started raising issues of Article 370, of the Galwan Valley clashes, of nationalism in the Bihar elections. Those in the opposition asked Dr. Patra, what does a local state assembly election have to do with these issues, which are more relevant for a general election rather than an assembly election? The charge against you is, because there isn't enough development, you want to get people charged up on issues like nationalism so that they forget local issues and focus on national issues like 370, like the Galwan clashes. Let's start with Dr. Patra.
Thank you, Rahul. I would say state is a subset of the nation. So, of course, state issues are important, as are the national issues. We have local leaders and we have national leaders. The local leaders, including the Chief Minister, Mr. Nitish Kumar, have been speaking vociferously on the local issues. I remember when I also, as a leader from Delhi, go and hold press conferences there, we are given all the details of the local development which we carry out in the local press conferences. But when the Prime Minister, who is a national leader, he's on the dais, he speaks both about the national issue as well as the state issues. It's not that in today's 1-hour speech, Prime Minister Narendra Modi did not address the state issues. He did address the state issues, but of course there was a paragraph about Article 370 and certain other national issues like China. Two things. Number one, to say that the parties who in fact are in Gupkar alliance are only existing in Jammu and Kashmir and they have nothing to do with the ones who are contesting election in Bihar is wrong. Because I remember categorically that the Gupkar alliance was initially signed by the Congress party as well. CPM has welcomed it, and the day Mr. Farooq Abdullah came out and said after the alliance's meeting that we want China's help to reinstate Article 370, this was the tweet of Mr. P. Chidambaram, a tall leader of the Congress party, and I read out the tweet. The Congress also resolutely stands for restoration of the status and rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. The arbitrary and unconstitutional decisions of the Modi government of August 5, 2019 must be rescinded. So of course the Congress party also said that whatever the Gupkar alliance is demanding is our demand. Okay. So it's our duty, I would say it's one of our foremost duty to go and take these issues into the public domain in Bihar.
Pavan Khera, Sambit Patra eloquently argues the Prime Minister is a national leader. He takes up not just regional, local issues, but also national issues. And yes, P. Chidambaram, our former Home and Finance Minister, has come on record and said that the view of the Gupkar alliance is also the view of the Congress party, that he will, if he comes back to power, ask for the restoration of Article 370. Therefore, it's totally legitimate to put these issues before the people of Bihar. Pavan Khera.
The Prime Minister is known to be resorting to such issues which have a potential to have divided opinions. After all, nobody can have a divided opinion on the need for employment, on the need for highway number 70 in Bihar instead of 370 in Kashmir. Because in Bihar, these are the issues. And as a Prime Minister, I mean, what use is the Prime Minister as a national leader if he cannot focus on state issues, if he cannot give a report card of the last 15 years of his alliance with Nitish Babu? He has to come out clean. Last election, Rahul, you were also covering it extensively. 5 years ago, the same Prime Minister was giving a list of 55 scandals against the same Nitish Babu. Today, they were sitting on the same dais. So, the questions will be asked and he's afraid of these questions. So, whenever the Prime Minister resorts to Hindustan, Pakistan, Hindu, Musalman, Shamshan, Kabristan, believe me, he knows he's losing the election. Therefore, he wants to shift our focus from the actual issues on hand here in Bihar to issues which really don't matter to the youth in Bihar right now who is struggling, fighting for a job. The youngest state of the country, and this is what the Prime Minister has to come and mislead them. So there are fault lines everywhere. You and I, Rahul, have different opinions about every issue. But the point is, do you want to exploit those fault lines and divide the country further, or you want to bring everyone together despite the fault lines? No, that's a job of a statesman. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister who first thought that he wanted to be a statesman has ended up as a very small politician.
Sambit Patra, the Prime Minister being accused by the Congress of exploiting fault lines, dividing the country. Pawan Khera says, whenever the BJP refers to India, Pakistan, Shamshan, Kabristan, Kashmir terrorism, it senses that there is a desperation in the BJP, that you think that there is unpopularity, therefore you try and distract from that. Sambit Patra will counter that. Sambit.
No, contrary to Mr. Pawan Khera's statement, I would say whenever Prime Minister speaks, the voice of the people, the whisper of the ground, we astoundingly win. We have huge majority. Remember, he was talking about Kabristan and Smashan, and this is exactly what the Congress party said, that BJP is going to lose its deposit in Uttar Pradesh. We won 325 seats because there were discrimination on the ground, and we spoke against the discrimination. And ironically, Mr. Pawan Khera begins by saying that, well, look, why should we have discussions on divided issues, on issues which have divided opinion? I don't have any division on Article 370. I firmly believe that Article 370 should go. I do not have any kind of different opinion that Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. And I don't have any opinion on the issue, I mean divided opinion on the issue, that I will not pick up India's flag. I will till my last breath. Every BJP Karyakarta till my last breath or till their last breath will pick up India's flag, contrary to what their friends in Gupkar are saying, that we will not pick up India's flag. And here is the Congress party spokesperson saying that there is divided opinion about this. How can we say that there is divided opinion on picking up India's flag? Number one. Number two, Mr. Rahul Gandhi comes to same Bihar, gives a speech about China entering 1200 kilometers up to Tughlaq Lane in Delhi, up to 10 Janpat. I mean, literally, Rahul, you should be very, there might be Chinese army outside your studio, because by what account Mr. Rahul Gandhi has given, 1200 kilometers into India, China has entered. No, just a second, it's not level. You have spoken about national issues, you have brought China into the fore, and let me conclude by saying, Rahul, if the Prime Minister would not have spoken about China, then the next tweet of Rahul Gandhi would have been, why was the Prime Minister silent on China? Are you afraid of China? Are you afraid of Xi Jinping?
Does this then, Pawan Khera, push the
Rahul,
Congress on the defensive?
may I come in now?
No, one second. Can I ask you a direct question? As the official representative of the Congress party on this broadcast, can you tell us, sir, what is your party's official position on the restoration of Article 370? Do you support what Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah, Mehbooba Mufti have asked
Definitely.
for? Which is what P. Chidambaram has said as well?
I'll definitely respond to your question, but first things first. He's saying our friends in Gupkar. Mehbooba Mufti was your ally, for God's sake. आपने तो सरकार महबूबा मुफ्ती के साथ बनाई थी, दोस्त अब हमारे हो गए. अरे आपके तो पार्टनर थे सरकार में. और Prime Minister brought China today, without naming China, of course, because Prime Minister doesn't have the courage to name China. वोट मांगने की शर्म नहीं आती गलवान के शहीदों के नाम पे, लेकिन जिस देश की वजह से वो शहीद हुए उसका नाम लेने की हिम्मत नहीं है प्रधानमंत्री में. That's our problem with this statement of Prime Minister. Now, Rahul, coming to your question of 370, 45 amendments were made to Article 370 by Congress governments. Each time they were made in consultation with consensus with local political stakeholders, with the people of Kashmir, Jammu and Ladakh. हम क्या कह रहे हैं? हमारे वक्त तो किसी ने आपत्ति नहीं उठाई. 370 के 45 अमेंडमेंट्स हुए हैं, संशोधन हुए हैं. Nobody objected because we took everyone along. This country, ये देश संवाद से चलता है, विवाद से नहीं. आप विवाद से चलाना चाहते हैं क्योंकि आपको विवाद में ही आपदा में अवसर ढूंढते हैं आप लोग.
But you aren't answering the question,
consensus, sir. This is a large country
sir,
with different opinions,
Article
different
370
religions. I have answered.
What's the answer?
I've given you a very clear answer.
No, will you bring Article 370
Rahul,
back?
I've given you a clearer answer than you even expected from me. I have given you a clearer answer. Take the people along. जिनके भविष्य को आप निर्धारित करते हो, कम से कम उनको तो साथ लेकर चलिए. कॉन्सेंसस तो बिल्ड करिए. हमने भी किया. 370 को 45 बार अमेंड किसने किया? संबित पात्रा ने किया, जिनको झंडा उठाने की तहजीब नहीं थी, जो झंडा के खिलाफ थे तिरंगे के. नागपुर के हेडक्वार्टर में 1952 से अब तक झंडा नहीं फहराया जाता था. ये हमें सिखाएंगे झंडे की बात? महबूबा मुफ्ती के साथ पार्टनरशिप आप करो, झंडे पर भाषण हमें दो. देश के दुश्मन आप हो, हमसे हमें राष्ट्रवाद की बात बताएंगे.
संबित पात्रा,
I'm sorry, Rahul Kanwal. What is nationalism if you can't even talk about jobs to the young of this country? आप देश को नौकरी नहीं दे पा रहे और देश की
Okay, Pawan Khera, you've spoken enough. Let him respond.
देश प्रेम नहीं चलेगा.
You're calling this hollow nationalism, not speaking about jobs, and calling Mehbooba Mufti a friend of the Congress while she was in fact running a government with the BJP. Respond to that and more. Sanbit Patra.
See, Mehbooba Mufti ran a government with the Congress as well in 2002, if I'm right. I mean, remember when she was with us and when they realized that we are going to scrap Article 370, she went back. And today, in fact, she was saying कि उस जिन को निकालने की कोशिश की थी, हम तो जल गए, बर्बाद हो गए हम बीजेपी के साथ में, because BJP ने Article 370 हटा दिया. And today, in fact, the Congress party, you know, the ones who have no, no substance, they shout you down, they try to shout you down. I have the substance in me, and I am asking a direct question whether you want Article 370 back or whether you want to do away with Article 370. I mean, the question that the Congress party is raising over here is about consensus. That means the Congress party wants that as far as the consensus is concerned, we should hear to Mr. Farooq Abdullah, we should heed to what Ms. Mufti is saying, and we should bring back Article 370. Agar Cheen ke sahayata se bhi, even if at the cost of help of China, we should bring back Article 370. Is this consensus, or is this blasphemy as far as India is concerned? Is this consensus,
Rahul,
or is this treachery?
So,
is my question.
Pawan Khera, you said that you answered the question very clearly,
Rahul,
but in fact you didn't, because the question was, will Article 370 be brought back? You spoke about consensus.
I want to ask Sanbit Patra a direct question. When will highway number 70 be completed in Bihar? ये 370 बिहार में मत लाइए, यहाँ हाईवे नंबर 70 का बताइए. जॉब्स कितनी देंगे, कैसे देंगे, जवाब दीजिए. कितने कारखाने आपने लगाए पिछले 15 साल में, जवाब दीजिए. कितने अस्पताल बनाए बिहार में, जवाब दीजिए. कितनी नई सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटीज बिहार में लगाई, जवाब दीजिए. ये कहां यहां भटका रहे हैं? आइए बिहार में लौट कर आइए. चुनाव यहां का है, जब जम्मू कश्मीर का चुनाव होगा वहां बात कर लेंगे आपसे.
संबित,
डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन है, बताइए हाईवे नंबर 70 बिहार कहां से कहां तक जाता है, बताइए.
Let him speak, please.
Rahul, just a second.
बताइए ना. अरे यार राहुल
Pawan Khera, please calm down. Pawan Khera, one second. Gentlemen, no, sorry. One second. Pawan Khera, I'm hoping that we can have a civilized, sensible conversation. You've asked a question. Dr. Patra will respond to that. I will not let this degenerate to the level of a banana republic.
Give me one uncivilized word that I use.
No,
Rahul.
I'm saying calm down. You've asked a question. Now let him respond.
Give me one uncivilized word that I use.
Don't heckle him. You've asked a question.
Rahul,
let him
I request
answer.
that,
Okay.
Rahul,
Turn it down.
I request you
Let him respond.
that let's not have a jungle. Yeah. My sincere request is let's not have a jungle Raj debate. I mean, we should have a Sushasan debate. We should have a debate in which we can easily speak, not shout over each other. Number one, see, first and foremost, Pawan Khera refused to answer.
Okay, Pawan Khera, this is not right. Okay, Pawan Khera, 1, 2, 3, your fader goes down. You've asked a question. Sanbit Patra is responding to it. Please have the patience to listen to what he says. Dr. Patra.
I will answer Pawan's questions first. Let me give you the broad outlines as to what was the difference between those 15 years and these 15 years that we are talking about. Those 15 years versus these 15 years. Budget ka aakar. Budget kitna bada tha? How huge was the budget? 23,855 crore then. 2,11,751 crore now. GDP 3.19% then to 11.3% now. Krishi Vikas Dar 2.35% then, and now the agriculture growth rate is 8.50% in Bihar. Prati Vyakti Aay per capita income, then it was 8,000 rupees to 43,822 rupees. Bijli ki uplabdhata, the availability of electricity in Bihar then during Lalu's regime was 22%, now it is 100%. Pakki Sadak, he was talking about Sadak, he was talking about rural roads, etc. 34% availability then, now it is 96%. Gair Krishi Vikas Dar 3.9% then, now it is 12.2%. Punjikat Vray 3,340 crore then, 21,058 crore now. Rajkoshiya Ghata, the deficit, revenue deficit was 6.2% then, now 2.7%. Industrial growth rate then was 0.7%, now 17%.
Okay.
So I have given a comparative data. My question to him is, will you bring back Article 370 or you denounce Article 370 and what Mr. P. Chidambaram has said? Do you denounce Mr. P. Chidambaram, Farooq Abdullah and Mufti Mohammed is my direct question. Now you please answer.
Mr. Khera.
We will discuss 370 ad nauseum when it comes to the elections in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. Let's come back to Bihar. 80,000 crore per year is surrendered in your budget. So you give me high aankadas of budget, usse itna बढ़ गया, पूरी country में हर state का बढ़ा है. Nothing to do with you. 1.5% contribution to employment by industry. Number of industries that have closed down versus number of industries that have opened. Number of industries that have opened, 0. Number of industries that have shut shop, 126. Number of hospitals, 0. 15 years. आज वो उद्योग बंद हो रहे हैं जो हमारे वक्त खुले थे, आज आपके वक्त बंद हो गए हैं. यस, अब नया कोई अस्पताल नहीं आया, छोड़िए. सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी 1. 25% IAS IPS officers in the last 10 years have been from Bihar, but in Bihar, the youngest state of India, the unemployment is at highest in India, all under your watch. Mr. Narendra Modi 5 years ago came and told everybody, told the country that बीमारू है ये राज्य. 3.5 साल में ठीक हो गया. उससे पहले बीमारू था क्योंकि नीतीश बाबू आपके साथ नहीं थे. 55 घोटाले आप बताते थे हमें, नरेंद्र मोदी जी खुद आकर बताते थे. आज if every young man wants jobs, they are talking about jobs. आप कितनी मेहनत करोगे फोकस हटाने से?
So I also need to go across to the other guests on the show.
The young man of Bihar from jobs.
Sambit Patra, quick counter. Then I need to go across to Manisha Priyam and Sohail Bukhari. Very quick counter, please.
See, Rahul, I'm very thankful that after a long span of time, I'm sharing the dais with Manisha Priyamji today. She is someone who knows Bihar in and out. She is a Bihar ki beti herself. Ask Manisha Priyam, because I have also grown up in Bihar. I was educated in Bihar in my 8th class. Let me tell you, in previous elections, अगर election होते थे बिहार में, किसी भी election में उस जमाने में 300 से 500 लोगों का मरना तय था. 300 to 500 people used to die in Bihar. लोग बम खरीदते थे पहले बूथ में, बाद में वोट करने जाते थे. I mean, आप एक नई गाड़ी, एक मारुति 800 खरीदने से पहले 100 बार सोचते थे कि कहीं ये रंगदारी के लिए हमारे घर में ना आ जाए. मनीषा जी से पूछिए, हमारे कितने दोस्त जो बिहार में गांव में रहते थे या शहरों में रहते थे, डॉक्टर्स एंड इंजीनियर्स, उनका पलायन हुआ. दे केम टू दिल्ली एंड अदर प्लेसेस जस्ट बिकॉज उनके बच्चों की किडनैपिंग ना हो जाए. डू यू वांट that kind of Bihar yet again? Have every debate, but for God's sake, let's not have the debate, let's not have a Bihar where there was rangdari, where kidnapping was the industry. Let's for God's sake not employ youngsters into kidnapping industry. And no answer on Article 370. They stand with Article 370 reinstallment. This is what is condemning about the Congress party.
Manisha Priyam, you're seeing the fireworks as we build up to Diwali between the BJP and the Congress. On Article 370, the Galwan clashes, jobs, nationalism. You understand the ins and outs of the psyche of the voters of Bihar. Do you hear me, Manisha Priyam? Give me a moment, I'll fix that connection. Till then, Suhail Bukhari, we saw the rather strange spectre of the Congress doing a press conference in Bihar saying that Mehbooba Mufti has been let out as a ploy by the BJP so that she's out in public talking about exactly these issues so that they gain traction in the assembly elections of Bihar. So she's being attacked not just by the BJP but also by the Congress, who's calling her release a BJP ploy and questioning the timing of her release. Suhail Bukhari.
Rahul, we are precisely 21 minutes into the show, and your show represents typically what is the problem that we are faced with. Mostly we have discussed Jammu and Kashmir and we have discussed 370, and the only person who did not speak was someone from Jammu and Kashmir. So that has been the problem. The issue belongs to us, the issue affects us, and we are the only people who are supposed to shut our mouths, and everyone else will go tom-tomming about it. They will fight for or against it, they would do politics on it, but people of Jammu and Kashmir are not supposed to do that. And if once we do so, we are accused by one side of one thing and another side of another thing. The problem here is that, we are talking about elections, we are talking about democracy, but please stop and look at what you've done to Jammu and Kashmir. The problem is that the current dispensation in New Delhi wants all of us to believe that democracy is essentially majoritarianism, which it is not. What you've done is illegal, unconstitutional, unilaterally. Just because you've got majority in the parliament does not mean that you would bulldoze the people and their rights that are guaranteed by the constitution. It's not somebody's favor to us that was given to the people of Jammu and Kashmir in the form of the special status and our own constitution 370. It was the resultant of a bilateral pact. The Jammu and Kashmir, Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir had acceded to a secular democratic India under certain circumstances, and we were, it was a sovereign commitment by the Union of India to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which one fine day you got majority, you wake up and do away with it, putting us all in jail. And you are telling
Sambit Patra wants to counter that.
When we talk
before
about
I
it,
go across to Manisha Prem.
Pakistanis, we become separatists.
Can I? Thank you. First and foremost, I strongly object to these words, and which shows the right psyche. The words Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, there's nothing called as a Hindu majority Uttar Pradesh and a Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir. We are all Indians, and to say that we are Muslim majority state is absolutely a wrong statement. Secondly, he said that it was a precondition that a Muslim majority Jammu Kashmir would be part of India only if you have Article 370. Please go into the timeline to find that in fact Jammu Kashmir became part of India. As far as Raja Hari Singh's signature was concerned, that came first. Article 370 came 2 years thereafter. So you are getting the timeline wrong. Thirdly, to say that just because you have majority in the parliament, can you bulldoze us over? Majority in the parliament means democracy. That is the definition of democracy. It is by virtue of the elected representatives from Jammu Kashmir till Kanyakumari that the integration process of India is decided. That law is being made on the floor of parliament. There was a democratic debate, and I remember Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, that time, categorically saying that if in a single representative from Jammu and Kashmir, from PDP or from NC or from Congress get up and say any single benefit of Article 370, we will have a complete discussion on that benefit. Not a single member of parliament of your state, from your party, got up to say that these are the benefits. It was a discriminatory article, discriminating against women, discriminating against Dalits, discriminating against refugees, and that's the reason as to why it is gone for good. For God's sake, don't bring in democracy over here. You should apologize for the fact that Mehbooba Mufti does not want to raise the Indian flag.
Rahul.
What all had you said in the past? खून की नदियां बह जाएंगी, हम झंडे नहीं उठाएंगे, एक झंडा उठाने वाला नहीं रह जाएगा. Actually, you 3 or 4 people, Farooq Saab, Mufti ji, and 3 or 4 people, you are the ones who are left. Rest Jammu and Kashmir is doing fantastically.
Okay, Suhail Bukhari, respond to that. Whether it is that we won't hold the Indian flag or that let's take China's help in bringing 370 back. That's not playing out well. It's not acceptable, and a large majority in the country thinks those comments are completely out of line. Suhail.
Well, Rahul, let me just respond to what Sambit said. You know, no matter how much they want to erase from public memory, the history remains as it is. I mean, whether he may like it or not, when accession happened, Jammu and Kashmir was a Muslim majority state, which was out of the purview of the Union of India, and it acceded to the secular democratic Union of India. Jammu and Kashmir, no matter what you do, that is the history, and you cannot change it. And there were certain, understandings. Can you do away with the fact that there was this special status of Jammu and Kashmir came from the Parliament of India? It was not something that hawa mein aa gaya. उसी कमिटमेंट को आपने यूनिलैटरली यू डू एंड जहां तक आप डेमोक्रेसी की बात करते हैं, मैं फिर रिएटिरेट करता हूं, मैं आपकी डेफिनेशन से नहीं इसको ये करता हूं, सिर्फ मेजॉरिटेरियनिज्म डेमोक्रेसी नहीं है। आपने कल भी एक लॉ बनाया यहां के किसानों के खिलाफ, आपने देखा कि लोग कैसे सड़कों पे आ गए। डेमोक्रेसी का मतलब ये नहीं है जब आपके पास आंकड़ा आ गया तो आप किसी की बात ही नहीं सुनेंगे। डेमोक्रेसी का मतलब ये नहीं है कि आपकी पार्टी का जो मैनिफेस्टो है वो देश के संविधान से बड़ा हो जाएगा, जहां हर किसी को साथ लेके चलने की बात की गई है, जहां हर किसी के लिए स्कोप होना चाहिए। और जहां तक जम्मू कश्मीर का मसला है, आप तो खुद देखिए ना, जब जम्मू कश्मीर की बात आती है आप पाकिस्तान ले आते हैं, नेशनलिज्म लेके आते हैं। उसी जम्मू कश्मीर की आज बात हो रही है, जैसे पवन खेरा ने पहले बोला, आप चीन की बात करते हैं, आप बिहार के उन जवानों को शाबाशी देते हैं, जवानों को शाबाशी देते हैं कि उन्होंने जी जान से देश की रक्षा की। आप ये क्यों नहीं बताते कि हमारे 900 से ज्यादा स्क्वायर किलोमीटर जो वो खा गए वो हम नहीं ला पाए हैं। हमारी जो इनएक्शन है उसके बारे में हम कुछ नहीं करते। हम चाइना का नाम तक
both Rahul Gandhi and the PDP raising that question, Sambit Patra, of the Chinese army coming in allegedly usurping 1200 square kilometers of Indian land, and the allegation against the BJP and the Prime Minister is that the Prime Minister didn't even take the name of China while talking about the Galwan clashes. Sambit Patra.
See, first and foremost, to our PDP friend, let me tell him that as far as Article 370 is concerned, temporary and transient are the two words which are attached to which were attached to Article 370. So you know the meaning of temporary and transient. They can never be permanent. Number two, as far as China is
Supreme
concerned,
Court has said.
One second, Sohail Bukhari, Sambit Patra heard you in patience. Please listen to him as well.
Just a second, sir. See, as far as China is concerned, who said that 1200 square kilometers of our land has been taken in? Someone was saying 900 square kilometers right now. Who is the authority over here? For me, the authority is the Indian Army. The CDS and the Indian Army Chief both have said that not an inch has been taken. The Prime Minister of the country has spoken. The Defence Ministry of country has spoken on the floor of the Parliament. When all of them have spoken, who are these people to say that 1200 square kilometers have been taken? Is it to say that those 20 Bihar regiment Jawans who in fact sacrificed their life protecting the sovereignty and the security of this land, they did not fight well? Is this what Mr. Rahul Gandhi wants to suggest? That in fact the Bihar regiment could not protect the integrity of this country, and in fact those 20 Jawans from Bihar could not give a befitting reply to China? I would say, मैं तो कहना चाहता हूं कि बिहार के उन 20 जवानों ने अपनी शहादत दे दी, मगर उन्होंने देश की संप्रभुता और अखंडता को 1 इंच भी कम नहीं होने दिया। राहुल गांधी का यह कहना कि वो 20 जवान देश की संप्रभुता को बचा के नहीं रख पाए, कहीं ना कहीं ये राहुल गांधी द्वारा उन 20 जवानों के खिलाफ आवाज है। मैं बिहार की जनता को कहता हूं कि इसके लिए राहुल गांधी को वो कभी क्षमा ना करें।
But Rahul Gandhi didn't say that. He actually said that they've come in and let Pawan Khera respond. But you're making two different points.
So how did they, Rahul, I'll just take 5 seconds. No, I'll just take 5 seconds, Rahul, on your statement that Rahul did not say that. If Rahul meant, just a second, I'm
मेरा समय मत लीजिए अब, इन्होंने जो कह दिया मुझे बोलने दीजिए राहुल का मत।
नहीं आपका नहीं ले रहा, रुकिए Rahul is the anchor.
करके मत दीजिए
Rahul. Okay, 1 second, Dr. Patra, you've spoken. Now let's listen to Pawan Khera. I'm coming back to you. Whatever Pawan says, you'll have to counter. So let's listen to Pawan. I'll come back to you. Pawan Khera.
Okay.
अरे आप संबित पात्रा जी 20 जवान निहत्थे आपने वहां भेज दिए, वो शहीद हुए और प्रधानमंत्री चीन को क्लीन चिट देते हैं, कहते हैं यहां कोई आया ही नहीं। तो आप तो अपमान कर रहे हैं उनकी शहादत का। बिहार की जनता आपको माफ करेगी? पहली बार मैंने देखा प्रधानमंत्री ने बिल्कुल मिसरीड किया है बहुत ही गलत बात करके गए हैं, उसका नुकसान उन्हें होगा। देश को तो नुकसान कर ही गए वो क्लीन चिट देकर चीन को, और अब यहां आकर हमारे वीर सैनिकों का अपमान कर रहे हैं आप लोग। ये बिल्कुल बर्दाश्त के बाहर है।
ओके, संबित पात्रा,
जवाब दे दूं?
संबित पात्रा,
देखिए 20 जवानों ने शहादत दी। किस लिए शहादत दी? ताकि हमारे जमीन का 1 इंच भी, हमारा एक कंकड़ भी चीन के हाथ में ना आए। और मैं सैल्यूट करके उन बिहार रेजिमेंट के जवानों को कहता हूं कि वो सक्सेसफुल रहे, वो सफल रहे, एक कंकड़ भी चीनियों के हाथ में आने नहीं दिया। मगर यहां जो राहुल गांधी कह रहे हैं कि नहीं वो सफल नहीं रहे, 1200 किलोमीटर, ऐसे तो राहुल गांधी ने 1200 किलोमीटर मतलब जनपद तक ही आ गए थे वो, 1200 किलोमीटर अंदर चीन घुस आए। मतलब ये 20 जवान सफल नहीं रहे अपने कर्म में, अपने काम में। मैं कहता हूं सफल रहे, कांग्रेस के प्रवक्ता कह रहे हैं सफल नहीं रहे। देश जानता है हकीकत क्या है, देश को विश्वास है। 15 मिनट में हम होते तो चीन को धक्का मार के पीछे फेंक देते। कहां थे आप? 55 साल तक आपने सत्ता संभाली, धक्का मार के पीछे फेंक देते। आपके परनाना जी ने दिया था ना, वह 50,000 स्क्वायर किलोमीटर जमीन दे दिया था, आप धक्का मार के पीछे फेंक देते। पीओके भी ले आते, सियाचिन भी ले, जो सियाचिन भी देने वाले थे, खैर बाकी आप अक्षय चिन्ह ले आते। किसने मना किया था आपको ये सब लेके आने के लिए? हमने रोका था। 15 मिनट में पीछे धक्का मार के पीछे।
प्रधानमंत्री की है,
कमाल है,
देश की सेना की नहीं है। कमजोर नरेंद्र मोदी हैं जो चीन का नाम लेने से डरते हैं। देश की सेना पर कोई प्रश्न चिन्ह मत लगाइएगा, हिम्मत मत करिएगा देश की सेना पर प्रश्न चिन्ह लगाने की। इस सेना ने बांग्लादेश बनाया है, इसलिए यहां बैठकर देश की सेना के नाम पर राजनीति में नहीं करने दूंगा आपको। कमजोर प्रधानमंत्री है, मजबूत देश है, मजबूत सेना है, लेकिन इससे कायर प्रधानमंत्री हमने नहीं देखा जो चीन का नाम लेने से थर-थर कांपता है।
नहीं, I object.
Okay, one second. I have to go to Manisha Priyam. Okay, one second. Manisha Priyam is soon going to be in our studios. No, one second. Manisha Priyam is going to pull my ear and say,
this
you
is not
made me
fair.
wait for 30 minutes.
This man had called the Prime Minister Osama bin Laden also. नहीं, पवन खेरा ने प्राइम मिनिस्टर को ओसामा बिन लादेन भी कहा था। प्राइम मिनिस्टर को इन्होंने आतंकवादी भी कहा था पहले। आज कायर कह रहे हैं, आप पीएम को ओसामा बिन लादेन कहेंगे, आप पीएम को कायर कहेंगे, ये क्या मजाक बना? मैं कहता हूं नहीं, एक डिबेट पे इन्होंने पहले पीएम को ओसामा बिन लादेन और नहीं, इन्होंने आतंकवादी कहा था हिंदुस्तान के पीएम को, इन्होंने आज पीएम को कायर कहा है। अरे सबसे बड़ा डरपोक और कायर कोई है तो उसका नाम राहुल गांधी है।
Okay. One second, time out. Okay, Pawan Khera and Sambit Patra, there are channels that like this kind of debate. I do not. I will not allow this debate to degenerate because that's not the way we like running debates. This has to make sense. It cannot be about noise. If you want to win, you have to win through the power of your argument and your ability to convince viewers about the righteousness of your cause. You cannot win by shouting. I know there are channels that love that. I hate that. And we will not let this debate turn into a banana republic. Manisha Priyam, my apologies for having made you wait for now 34 minutes before I came to you. I did try once earlier, that didn't succeed. But you're seeing where this campaign in Bihar is heading. You understand Bihar better than most people do. Will voters, when they go out in these 3 phases, vote on issues like Article 370, Galwan, nationalism, or do you think jobs, unemployment, migration, those are the issues that will determine voting behavior?
So Rahul, the second part of what you said is extremely important to Bihar. Rahul, can you hear me?
I hear you well.
Okay, so the second part of what you just said, jobs, unemployment, migration, somehow these are coming to be the center stage of this election in Bihar. And my reading is that the 3 rallies that the Prime Minister did today were very, very Bihar-focused rallies. They were kind of giving it back to the campaign that has been built by the Mahagathbandhan up until now. He went on to, the television studio debate versus what happened in the Prime Minister's rallies, I see it as completely different. The Prime Minister had a Bihar-specific tone, intonation. He was referring to the opponents as those who brought to Bihar the tag of being a Bimaru. Now that lapetos at one go all of Lalu Yadav's rule as also the prior rule of the Congress party at one go in a political statement. Now he also spoke about the fact that it is his government that is going to be setting up AIIMS and IITs. Remember, the Mahagathbandhan is talking about higher education, it's talking about jobs. Now here's a Prime Minister who's saying that, look, we are going to do this. The Prime Minister also had a very veiled statement made to the RJD when he spoke about Raghuvansh Babu. He spoke about two important sons of Bihar, the sunset of socialism literally, with Ramvilas Paswan going and Raghuvansh Babu going. Now everybody knows that Raghuvansh Babu was given a very raw deal by the RJD. He had been a stalwart leader. So to the Bihari, today the Prime Minister's speeches and the three rallies have come as a very, very local specific message. Yes, indeed, all of what you said and our esteemed panelists have spoken about were mentioned, but those are going to make the debate between the BJP and the Congress party on the ground a very, very specifically tailored set of issues are on top of the electorate's agenda, and the electorate could see a ring in what the Prime Minister had to offer today. The second important part was that there's a lot of Vishwasniyata now around Narendra Modi. Remember, he fought 2014 without Nitish Kumar. He fought 2019 with Nitish Kumar. He's been able to come victorious in 2 rounds. So there is a political Prime Minister who's been able to build a credibility for himself, a credibility graph that has been increasing, and it's increased with Pulwama, and it's increased with the steps that the Indian Army took. And I think the Prime Minister taking the credit for it to the hilt and going with his credibility to the electorate. So one will have to see what this high graph of the BJP can do for the somewhat flat, soaring downwards graph of Nitish Kumar's JDU. That's the question before the electorate.
I think you've put it well. As far as the Prime Minister's rallies are concerned, they've had a very, very local intonation. Yeah. You've put it well. You've got Nitish Kumar's popularity on a downward spiral. You've got the Prime Minister who still, according to the CSTS poll, is held in high esteem. Will the Prime Minister be able to do the heavy lifting of bringing the JDU's fortunes up as well? I want to thank all our guests for joining us, Dr. Sambit Patra, Pawan Khera, Sohail Bukhari, Manisha Prayam. We will have a lot more on Bihar elections over the next several days because nobody in this country covers politics in the way that we do at India Today.